early morning pre-sunrise with an original Canon 1D and a 1DS Mark II. And I swear I'm not going to bury the lead here. I wouldn't do that. But please give me like a minute and a half to set this up properly. The video I thought I was making was going to be called something like Canon 1D, 1DS Mark II, an informal comparison. Informal because I'm not going to be taking the same photo on the two cameras and comparing them. That approach seems pointless to me. For one camera is full frame, the other's not. One is 4 megapixels, one is 17, if you round up. The full frame 17 megapixel camera just wins by default. No comparison needed. But conversely, one is the original Canon flagship DSLR from 2001 and my first pro camera, and it wins all the nostalgia points and all the historical significance points. Why am I not making that video? I kind of am, but in the course of working on it, some things changed, or I made some important realizations, decisions. See, I love old DSLRs, but I own too many. I've been selling some off, just keeping my absolute favorites. I sold my 1D Mark II recently, but I still have 2 1D series cameras, these two that I mentioned previously. Wouldn't it make sense then to just make a decision? Which one of these is my favorite? Which one is more special to me? Keep my favorite, sell the other. But it's a really, really tough decision because it's not something that can be solved by a simple A/B comparison. It's more of a philosophical question. What makes a camera valuable to me or worth keeping? How do I even begin to approach this? Well, it turns out I don't even need to answer the question. Okay, that's the setup. Here's why I probably won't be shooting DSLRs anymore. And I'm not adding the word probably in order to backpedal, but it's because I only see one way forward for me with DSLRs, and I'm probably unwilling to go there, but it's an option, I guess, if this ends up being too soul-crushing to me. So the sun is just starting to come out, so it's not an issue yet, but it will be. And I can't not shoot into the sun. I swear to myself I'm not going to do it. Not today, Satan, but I always do it. For landscapes, macro, portraits, weddings, pick your genre. I'm constantly drawn to the sun. I'm like a goddamned moth. Optical viewfinders are damaging my vision. This has been ongoing for decades. I've got the bride right in front of the sun, kind of using her to block the light for me so that I can compose my shot with my telephoto lens. Then she moves slightly, and I get a magnified laser blast right in the eye hole. When I'm doing landscapes, it's not like I'm staring right at the sun. Even when the camera is pointed at the sun, of course I'm trying not to look at it. I'm squinting, I'm looking to the side using my peripherals, or just making assumptions about the composition with my eyes basically closed, hoping for the best. But I'm still usually getting an eyeful anyway, no matter what technique I'm using. It's just impossible to do this safely, and especially when you're doing it day after day after day. When I switched to mirrorless in 2018, 2019, whenever it was, I had already done a lot of damage to my eyes from weddings and portraits. Landscapes weren't really a thing yet for me, but I find doing landscapes is even more damaging. I'm getting nuked, seared by the sunlight even more often. The last few months have been particularly bad. I ended up with some extremely unhappy ocular orbs quite a few times, and it's double concerning because not only is there a general deterioration of my vision that I've noticed for a long time, yes, it could just be age, but I'm having sporadic issues that are frankly terrifying lately, and granted, self-diagnosis is a really bad idea, and I don't want to get too specific about what's going on because if I describe my symptoms, I'm afraid someone will inform me that I'm definitely going blind, and I would rather not know. Just stopping for a sec to charge some batteries, eat a snack. But until there's some reason not to, I'm going to operate under the assumption that everything's going to be fine with my eyes. Yeah, I've likely damaged my vision a bit, but everything's going to be fine. Lots of people have imperfect vision. Boo-hoo, poor me. But it can't continue. I've got to take some steps to make sure that I don't make the situation any worse than it is already, / he's going to be, but I assume I'm going to be fine. Hopefully this decision is the very reason that I'm going to be fine. Well, gee whiz, aren't I a responsible adult? Not really, because about halfway through making this video is when I realized I wasn't making the video that I thought I was making. So even with the knowledge that this may well be my last day shooting DSLRs, for fear of going blind, I was still shooting into the sun, almost constantly, still blasting the shit out of my eyeballs with nuclear lasers. I just have no self-control. I will be as self-destructive as it takes, and I will damage myself for my art 100% of the time. I am a complete ass to myself, so the only thing I can think to do to stop this is to remove temptation. Why I said possibly or maybe or whatever I said is because there is one way I could safely use a DSLR, and that is to record video through the optical viewfinder, which means I'll be monitoring from a screen. I wouldn't have the viewfinder up to my eye. I do this occasionally. I think the video I get when I shoot that way is pretty good. I don't generally shoot that way though, because one, watching nothing but through the viewfinder video gets boring a lot quicker than cutting back and forth to some kind of real world shot, then the photo, then back to the real world shot of me shooting, then another photo. I think that format feels perpetually fresh, and not so when the photo looks exactly like what you've just seen in the viewfinder. It is absolutely cool in moderation, but it's not enough on its own to keep a video interesting, in my opinion. Augmenting it with a GoPro or something, maybe, that is perhaps doable. That would certainly keep it fresh, but that is actually not the main issue I have with filming that way. Here is the primary issue. I shoot DSLRs because they are more fun than mirrorless cameras. It's a classic, traditional, gloriously manual experience. Well, not when you strap a bunch of crap on your camera to film through the viewfinder. Articulating arms, electrical tape. You've got a blocked viewfinder, and the worst case is blocked buttons or dials, blocked LCD screen. It's awkward to hold, it's awkward to use. I can usually eliminate those last few issues, but fun to shoot, it is not. So then what is the point of shooting the DSLR once you've removed all the fun of shooting the DSLR? I probably don't need to state this explicitly, but with mirrorless, you're just looking at a screen. You're not actually looking at the sun directly, so no damage to your eyes is going to occur. Maybe damage to the sensor eventually, but that's hardly a comparable concern. But look, I feel horrible about this. I feel like I'm going to hurt someone's feelings. I know from lots and lots of messages that many people who have watched my videos have been, in some part at least, persuaded, enticed to go the old DSLR route because of something I've said. Sorry. I mean, I think you're still fine. Be careful, DSLR users. Take care of your eyes. I'm sure you do. I'm sure you'll be fine. You're probably very smart, whereas I'm very clearly not. So, what next? Well, I'm still probably, almost certainly, going to sell one of these cameras, keep the other. I've always said I'm not a collector, but not having a 1D at all, or any old DSLR of any kind, that would be a very sad reality for me. Alright then, back to the original question. Which one do I sell? Which one do I keep? I kind of consider both of these cameras to be my favorite camera of all time, which of course does not make any sense. The 1D has a 4.1 megapixel APS-H sensor. That is a sensor that's smaller than full frame. Sorry, I've been wanting to speak in a more beginner-friendly way, though perhaps today is not the day. The 1DS Mark II is a 16.7 megapixel full frame, and they're just kind of not the same thing. The 1D is built to prioritize speed, the 1DS2 quality. They come from a time when you could not really prioritize both. Something they have in common is a nearly identical shooting experience, nearly identical ergonomics, so that's cool. If you don't memorize the shutter sound and you don't read the front of the camera, don't go through the menu, you can almost forget which camera you're using. That is actually a plus to me. But I love the cameras for pretty different reasons. Do I keep the objectively better camera because it is objectively better? Do I keep the original because I enjoy things that are original and because I have history with it? You know, I say I love them for different reasons. I don't know if that's entirely accurate. I may in fact like the 1DS Mark II because it's like the 1D, just better quality. Well, I won't keep you in suspense. Here's the answer. You keep the camera that you love because you have history with it, because there will always be a better camera. So you can just eliminate that as a factor from the outset. It is rare to have a deep connection with something. That takes a lot of time. We don't get very much of that. So I will be keeping the 1D. Unless I catch myself going out and pointing it at the sun again, then I'll have no choice but to get rid of it too. But although I presented it as a very easy decision, it was not at all. I put in the work, dug through the archives, looked at tons of old family photos, tons of client work from the past. And I think the original 1D produces some really good-looking images. It's not just a purely nostalgia-based decision. It's a great camera. But all that other stuff was originally going to be part of this video back when it was about something different. But I might go ahead and put some of it on Patreon. I've gone through a lot of changes with my photography, with my strategy, my equipment, especially in the last 5 or 6 or 7 years, going from DSLR to mirrorless, not really enjoying mirrorless, getting into film, my passion for film growing into shooting almost exclusively film for a while. But the money and the time and the frustration got to be too much, so I re-embraced digital, switched from RAW to JPEG for a more film-like experience. And that coincided with my getting back into old DSLRs. Then I did mostly JPEG straight out of camera for something like 1.5 years, which I kind of stopped doing a couple of months back, or whenever it was. But now I'm mostly shooting RAWs. Eventually that'll be a topic I cover. Why I'm shooting RAW again. There were still some JPEG straight out of camera in this video, not many, but a few. So evidently mirrorless is my future. It sucks, but I don't really seem to have a choice. But the tools should not matter, the work should matter. And whatever feels right probably is right. Unless it causes you to go into debt, don't go into debt for any of this crap. So this was supposed to be the end, but I reflected upon the decision overnight, and I'm really not pleased about this, so I'm going to do a little shooting. Very little, but a little shooting on my 1DS2. Shooting video through the viewfinder, and we'll see how it goes. One advantage I should mention about the 1DS2, it has a much larger, much more immersive viewfinder than the 1D, than most cameras. A really nice viewfinder. But regarding this contraption that I'm using to shoot video through the viewfinder, it's working, but I certainly agree with myself. It is a miserable experience. Miserable to set up. Miserable to transport, miserable to maintain in the field, and most of all, it's miserable to shoot on, or to shoot with. Among other factors, it's hard to see where you're placing focus, it's hard to read your light meter, hard to see what your settings are. Yeah, some of that's displayed on your top screen, depending on the camera, so that helps. But look, I'm going to keep 1, maybe 2 DSLRs, so we'll see. Maybe the original 1D and the original 5D. I'm leaving the door open. Well, who knows, maybe I won't even sell the 1DS2. It does look nice, I'll admit, shooting video through that big, beautiful viewfinder. The 1DS2 gives me noticeably better viewfinder footage than most cameras. For that matter, I'll probably shoot film again at some point, so I'm glad I still own a film camera. Granted, it was my mom's, so I'd never ever get rid of it, but it's nice to have options. But day-to-day shooting is going to be a lot less, probably completely DSLR free. I have my VHS camera, it has an electronic viewfinder, so I can continue to use that, and hopefully that will fulfill all of my old camera needs for a while. And that's it, I'm gonna make this change and see how it goes. Maybe I'll miss it enough to be willing to deal with the shitty phone rig on a more regular basis. Probably not, but we'll see. Certainly on special occasions, I will.